we already have somebody for that, so we don't need you. Have you ever had the objection of, we have another supplier? This can be quite frustrating because we assume that, hey, they're sorted, they've got a problem, but somebody got there first, we better move on. But that's not strictly true. Customers change suppliers all the time. People are rarely 100% happy, or unhappy for that matter, with any one supplier or solution, including you. And if you've ever lost business to a competitor, you know that to be true. So we don't need to be scared by the we have another supplier objection. We can simply use it as a platform to have a really detailed conversation about what that supplier is doing well and what they're not doing so well, so that you can never be scared of being a competitor in your space. So like all objections, we need to understand what could the we have another supplier mean as another form of objection. Well, quite simply, it could mean that we don't see the need to change right now. Okay, the prospect has some form of solution in place and it is working as well as they know that it can, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's solving all of their challenges. So here's how you can use we have another supplier to further have a conversation with your prospects. Quite simply, we start off by saying, that's not a problem. Okay, this is so key that we present ourselves as really detached and undeterred the fact that they have another supplier. In fact, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. You know, it's good to hear you take whatever it is that you sell seriously. So let's say you sell marketing services. That's not a problem. It's good to hear that you take your lead generation seriously. As you've said you're working with someone, would you be open to the idea of looking at any possible gaps in your marketing strategy? Okay, see how that works? So you've simply addressed that it's not a problem that they have another supplier. You compliment them that it's quite good that they take their sector seriously, whether it be their energy or their marketing or their sales train, whatever it might be. And then say, look, as you've said that you're working with somebody, would you be potentially open to the idea of looking at any possible gaps within your marketing strategy? So now notice the language that's being used there. There's a lot of soft, neutral language designed to specifically not trigger sales resistance. So like, would you potentially be open to the idea of looking at any possible gaps? It's a really soft question. Now, most serious buyers will go, well, we're happy to have like a bit of a gap analysis to look. Some won't, and that's absolutely fine. You know how to move on. But rather than just kind of throwing, you know, well, we do this and we do this and we're cheaper and better and we won awards, prospects don't want to hear that. They've already got a supplier in place that seems to be working for them. So exploring with somebody, whether that might not actually be the case, could be something that they're open to. So let's assume that the prospect says, well, yeah, okay, we're open to investigating that. Then you can simply ask some of the following questions. Were you involved in choosing that supplier? Okay. Now this can help you decide whether the person you're speaking to is actually a key decision maker or maybe just an influencer within the organization. Did they actually play an integral part in choosing the supplier, or did they just sign off on the budget? Okay. You need to know who you're dealing with. Once they say, yeah, we was involved in choosing that supplier, then say, well, what made you choose that supplier? Now, what they'll tell you from here is their decision-making process, and more importantly, their decision-making criteria, which are two very different things. But the decision-making criteria is quite simply the checklist of things that they need to feel certain about before taking on a new supplier. So it's really important that if they say, well, we chose that supplier because they're local, or we chose that supplier because they have 24/7 customer service, or whatever it might be, you get an idea of what's important to them. Do you see how this works? You could also ask, what do you think makes the relationship work so well? Now, this again is key because they're going to tell you things that are important to them in the relationship building aspect of that service. Or you might find that the suppliers can go, well, you know, the relationship isn't great, but they just do a good job. Either way, it's not designed to give you manipulative questions to kind of manipulate your customers. It's really just finding out what it is that the customer values and what the customer does not value, and where can you fit in. Another question is, quite simply, well, what do you like about the marketing service you get at the moment? And the opposite of that would be, is there anything you don't like about the service you're getting at the moment? Get them to open up around things that they really like, because they should be going in your tick box, and the things that are potentially causing them concern, so you know whether they're going to be a good potential fit for you. Now, when people come to asking, is there anything you don't like about your current supplier? A lot of prospects might turn around to you and say, no, we're absolutely fine with everything. Don't let that stop you. Quite simply ask another question, which is what we call a reframe of that question. It's the same question, but worded slightly differently. Here it is. Is there anything you might change about if you could? Is there anything you might change about your lead generation if you could? That's a very different question, because now they might say, oh yeah, well, we'd love to have higher quality leads, less of them, but higher quality ones. Or we'd love to have more leads within this sector. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, they've given you something that they're not entirely satisfied with, and something that you as a potential new supplier should be thinking about. Another question you can ask is, okay, so what's the one thing that could be better? What's the one thing that could be better? And you're asking for them to play the pretend game, where they just give you an idea of what might make that supplier better. If they aren't currently delivering on that, who knows? Maybe you can. So never be deterred from the "we have another supplier" objection. Just use it as a great conversation starter, because it means that they take it seriously, and you can start to diagnose their existing supplier. Never badmouth the competition, but you can always get your prospects to start thinking about how well their supplier is currently serving them, and is there anything that maybe you could do potentially better. So good luck with that. Any comments below would be great. Like and subscribe if you want, but most of all, happy selling.